The new test rig at Massey's gets another level, tower sections arrive at Sanchez, Cessna 172s hang in the sky just like bricks don't, thanks Douglas Adams, and ongoing destruction of the history-making suborbital launch facility here at Starbase, Texas. Hey everybody, my name's Jeffy and welcome to episode 42 of our Starbase Flyover update. We'll talk about that and more as we stroll through the latest images brought to you by RGV Aerial Photography. Due to the ongoing cloudy weather, the images here taken on the 18th of May are from 4,000 feet, which provides a different angle and often show previously hidden details. So starting at Massey's test facility, let's take a look around. Here's a labelled map of the site to get familiar with the layout. As always, we'll start at the new static fire stand, where new pipework is being installed to the right of the water tanks. At the top of these tanks, we can see the main water lines have received a fresh coat of black paint. The area to the right of the flame trench is being built up in readiness for access to the underside of ships on the stand. Shifting focus to the locks portion of the tank farm, we can see concrete has been torn out and a crane is being constructed with a CFA drilling rig with truss segments sitting on the ground to the left. Moving to the structural test area, we can see significant progress has been made with rails and access platforms being installed in both the new structural test stand and the platform. More rails can be seen behind the ground fabrication building. To the side of the first level, we can see the second level being pre-assembled on the embed pad seen in previous flyovers. Here's a render from Chrome Kiwi to give you an idea of what the final structure might look like. Also sitting nearby, we can see additional access platforms that were near the lock subcoolers in the previous flyover. There are yet more concrete areas getting ready to be poured. The dirt areas are diminishing quickly, with only a few smaller pieces left. Let's move on to Sanchez, shall we? Let's take a quick look at the labelled map so those unfamiliar with the site can get a feel for the layout. Starting at the GSE building, it looks like reorganisation was on the menu this past week as preparations continue for the tower sections arriving and potentially also future tank farm construction. Materials previously stored on the left side of the building from this vantage point have been moved, with racks now extending around the rear of the building along the perimeter. Pipe fittings, valves and insulated cryogenic pipe is stacking up. Not much change with the two transport stands this week, but we do have another structure going together next to the completed booster cap that is yet to be moved. The structure seen under construction here in the last flyover has been moved, presumably to the Starfactory, and the next is now taking shape. Moving to the back of the site behind the water processing area and electrical station, new concrete has been laid down along the perimeter. It wouldn't be surprising to see more concrete poured on the slope adjacent to the grassy edge, similar to the launch site, to better prevent erosion. A retaining wall similar to behind the build site and village could be an alternative erosion control. At the front of the site next to Highway 4, a horizontal boring machine is shown up inside a fenced area. In the lower right of this view, another area marked by jersey barriers can also be seen, likely the exit point for the drilling operation. It's possible this is to facilitate power distribution to the stubouts located at the tower section construction areas, but we can't be certain. Speaking of tower sections, we now have a total of 4 at Sanchez. After Section 7 arrived from the port on the 15th, Section 3 made its journey to the site on Saturday the 18th. As sections are delivered atop hydraulic modular trailers pulled by trucks, they're lowered onto cribbing in a temporary parking space so the truck and trailers can be removed. SBMTs then move underneath and move the sections into their final position. Zooming in for a closer look at Tower Section 3, we can see just how much pipework is already assembled on these sections. This will make the stacking process much faster and reduce the amount of work required once the tower is erected. Monday morning, May 20, Tower Section 1 made its way from the Port Connector Road to Sanchez. After staging of Section 2 was observed near Highway 4 on Tuesday, it became the most recent to be transported as of Wednesday morning, May 22nd. All that remains at the port now is Section 6. It shouldn't be much longer before we see Sections 4 and 5 make the long journey from Florida to the port of Brownsville as well, with these sections having the required hinges for the ship QD arm. Up at the rocket garden, just a few engines remain on Booster 4. It won't be much longer before this iconic symbol of the garden is no more. Just a short distance away is the ship thrust simulation stand on standby after delivering S-31, affectionately known as Sparky, back to the build site following its shocking incident at Massey's. It remains to be seen if S-31 will be the next ship to grace the stand, and if so, how long we might have to wait following the electrical boo-boo. Over at the gasification plant, work continues to bore pipework underneath Remedios Avenue and over to Mega Bay 1 and the High Bay for delivery of commodities such as oxygen, argon and potentially nitrogen too. Is High Bay simply a stop along the way as they send gases over towards Starfactory, or could this be a sign of High Bay sticking around for quite a while longer? Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll round out this week's review of Sanchez with a look at the rapidly constructed parking garage. The construction of both ends of the structure by 2 cranes has now resulted in a meeting in the middle. It won't be much longer before this project comes to a close, after what feels like just a few weeks since the precast concrete slab started rising. That's it for Sanchez, so let's take a look at the build site. Due to the low altitude nature of this flyover, we'll take to the ground where we can see sections of the B14.1 test article. These include a forward dome, common dome, and a plain 4-ring section, and were moved into Mega Bay 1 on May 15th and 16th. Ship 31 is in the front right of the High Bay after returning from its cryo testing campaign, with a burned raceway on the 14th. Ship 30 is in the back right corner. Meanwhile, Mega Bay 2 is empty of ships. However, the scaffold structure behind the centre workstation has been completely removed. Now taking a look at this angle of the build site, we can see the raising of vertical steel columns and horizontal supports has largely finished in the area connecting Mega Bay 2 to the original Phase 1 Starfactory building. Comparing this week to last, a slight protrusion to the factory can be seen. Due to the absence of bridge cranes in this section, it's likely that this section of Starfactory will be used for storage of Raptor engines before they are installed on ships on Mega Bay 2. This low altitude flyover also allowed us to notice that the drainage pipes from the roof have been connected to the western facade of Starfactory. Zooming out, we can see the rows of HVAC units have been installed over the past 2 weeks. These will stabilise the interior temperature and humidity conditions, leading to improved weld quality. This is yet another good sign that SpaceX is moving fast to start production in the newly constructed phases by the end of the year. Looking at the aft flaps area, 4 can be seen on the racks with 1 on the ground. These will remain the same design for Starship Block 2, although the more angled forward flap sighted a week ago was moved into Starfactory. Tent 4, which is used for the tiling of flaps, continues to be waterproofed and painted, as it looks like SpaceX wants to keep the structure around for a while longer. The new building could be another fire pump house, or a pump house to pump wastewater down the nearby well, and now has a mystery set of pipes leading off to the side. Shifting our attention to the office building area, let's zoom in to get a sense of depth of the foundations that may connect to Starfactory. Looking at the lowest and newest section of the office building, it seems to lack large crossbeam pieces found in the other sections, which would suggest a lower roof and narrower floor plan. Now shifting right to the village, construction continues on several houses on this section of the road, which has been fully paved. Let's take a moment to check the labelled map of the launch site thanks to, you guessed it, Procky. The low altitude flyover and hazy conditions were a challenge for the launch site this week, with most of the activity focusing on the removal of the suborbital site. Let's dive right in. Looking at the lot in front of the Gateway to Mars sign, we can see the grading work seems to be mostly complete with gravel all the way to the highway. Drilling operations for concrete piles have continued since our last flyover. Dirt still covers the progress made so far. In this ground image, we can see on the left a rebar cage being lowered into a recently drilled hole. Looking to the left, we can see a couple of stacks of white plastic pipes. These are likely part of a well point dewatering installation that will surround the concrete pile work. This system was used to keep water out of excavated holes around the office building footings, as well as used for the rebuilding under the OLM after the damage of IFT-1. Recent documentation from the FAA suggests that the square area being reinforced will be the location of the next launch tower, so it would make sense that a deep hole for a substantial pile cap may be excavated soon. As we take back to the air, we can see that significant progress has been made on the removal of the suborbital tank farm. Between the 2 Grove cranes, the 2 methane tanks have been removed. The smaller tank was removed and trucked away the morning of the flyover. The larger tank that was also lifted onto a specialised trailer for oversized loads was parked here on the ramp leading to the former suborbital Pad A, and left the next day on May 19th, where it was parked on the side of the Port Connector Road where tower segments have been staged awaiting transport closures. The 3 water tanks that were just to the left of the Pad B construction, often referred to as the 3 Amigos, have also been removed from the site. In this ground image, we can see the third and final tank laying on its side prior to being dragged off to the side and ruthlessly broken into small pieces by two of the excavators. It's unclear if these tanks were going to be preserved or not. However, the first tank, when being lifted away from its previous location, had a failure of the lifting point, resulting in the tank plummeting to the ground and landing on its side. Perhaps following that incident, efforts to relocate these tanks were abandoned. Following the wet dress rehearsal on May 20, more on that later, the methane recondenser behind this crane was removed, as well as a methane subcooler and some additional pumps and vaporizers. Multiple attempts were also made to lift the LN2 tank here seen on the right, however those efforts were aborted for unknown reasons. As we look further down the site, not much can be seen with the upgrades to the tank farm. All of the systems were given a workout on May 17th, as SpaceX performed a partial tank test of the full stack, suggesting the final checkout of the upgrades were planned prior to the full wet dress rehearsal. Looking now at the vertical tanks, we can see that demolition of these original tanks is progressing quickly. During last week's flyover, all three of the LOX tanks and two LN2 tanks were still standing complete. This week we can see the first of the LN2 tanks has been scrapped, with the exception of the bottom portion of its outer shell. Like the methane-turned water tank before it, it seems they are electing to leave the lower sections of the shells in place, as containment for the concrete pedestal debris as it is broken apart within. To the left, between the tank farm and the highway, the shell has been removed from the second LN2 tank, and crews can be seen cutting a portion of the bottom into more manageable sized pieces, with the shell completely broken down on May 19th. This ground image shows the lower sections of both tank shells, as well as some of the remaining perlite resting on the structural support rings of the GSE Tank 1. On the night of May 20th, the LR11000 picked up the 9-metre load spreader and attached the inner tank for scrapping. At this point, only the three LOX vertical tanks remain, with perlite removal seemingly underway on these tanks too. Staying on the ground, we can see the Flight 4 full stack of Booster 11 and Ship 29. As previously mentioned, the day before these images were taken, a partial tanking test was performed, likely to further commission the new tank systems with the ship, as this was the first time a ship was loaded with propellants from the new horizontal tanks. At the base of Booster 11, we can see crews are inspecting the LOX tank with scaffolding covered in tarps to help protect the tank from FOD, as well as a return of ventilation hoses to protect crews while inside the tank. A second hose goes up under the booster, suggesting that they've also opened hatches in the engine bay for inspections. On May 20, seen here from RGV cam, the full stack performed a wet dress rehearsal in preparation for IFT-4. While the timing of propellant loading appeared to take a slightly different schedule from previous testing, as well as what appeared to be a slightly lower LOX load in B11. SpaceX would later confirm the completion of the Flight 4 launch rehearsal. With that, it appears all that remains is for Ship 29 to be destacked for remaining tile work and any final checkouts the vehicles need prior to FTS installation and regulatory approvals. SpaceX has submitted a request for a public safety determination from the FAA, which is an alternative process of returning to flight that could allow for IFT-4 without closing out the mishap investigation from IFT-3. On May 21st, new closures were posted to the Cameron County website. Included as a closure on May 28th starting at 5 AM, listed as non-flight testing, suggesting there may be another wet dress rehearsal attempt next week. This closure includes backup dates on the 29th and 30th. Of more interest, June 1st now has a closure posted beginning at 12 AM, lasting until 2 PM that day, with backup dates on the 2nd and 3rd. The supporting document confirms that this closure is for flight testing activities, and the closure window is in line with the timing of previous test flights. And that's it for episode 42 of Starbase Flyover Update. We hope you enjoyed your flight today with RGV aerial photography, and we hope to see you again. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe for more episodes or join our Patreon for even more content so you don't miss out the latest updates from Starbase, Texas. I'm Jeff A, and we'll see you next time, hopefully from 10,500 feet. Remember to keep your towels with you at all times and don't panic.